All right, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this month's Tech Talk. We have a great one for you this month. If you're new to the Tech Talk series, what we do here is we have a quick webinar Tech Talk about something interesting that you should know each month and something that a digital solution may be able to help your company with. And this month's topic is about how to use real-time data to make smarter decisions. And before we get really into it, I got a couple of little housekeeping items that we'd like to go through. This is a recorded event, and we will have this available up on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. If you are watching this live, you can submit any questions that you may have, and we will be monitoring those for a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And we also have the chat feature running in case you would like to chat with us at any point in time during this webinar. All right, with those housekeeping items out of the way, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. But before I do so, let me introduce myself. My name is Scott Englert. I am the Director of Marketing Operations over here at Axsoft, and I run each of these Tech Talks each month. And I am excited to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Trent Sharon. And Trent, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the fact that you are the VP of Strategic Partners here over at Axsoft.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here. So I spent about 20 years in the transportation industry before coming to Axsoft. In fact, I was actually an Axsoft customer before being recruited and hired by Axsoft to work on the product team. So I spent about almost 19 years here at Axsoft leading the product development and partnership teams.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I've worked with Trent for quite a long time, and he's really an awesome individual. And one of the coolest things that we're both into is Halloween. And as you can see on the slide here, he loves to decorate his house and has done some really intricate Halloween decorations. And you know, it's one of the coolest things that we get to talk about on a personal level. It's just something that we both have a background on, and I think it's really cool. So,
so anyhow, I may or may not have a couple of storage units.
Yes, exactly, with pneumatics and all kinds of fun, cool stuff that just really neat stuff. So, so let's jump right into the topic, and let's start with just saying, well, I guess we'll start off with a question for you, and that would be, what kind of smarter decisions can somebody make using real-time data, and why is this aspect of a business so essential to companies?
Well, in my experience, you know, every customer that we have, every company wants to provide a good customer experience service for their customers. In a perfect world, every service call had the workers show up at the appropriate time. They left the customer satisfied with the work that was performed and communicated automatically with the customer, and the work was documented kind of in a timely manner.
Absolutely. So that would be the perfect situation.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, when the schedule of a worker is known, you know, in other words, and again, I came from the transportation industry, but I think this also applies to the service industry. Everyone has had to wait for a cable repair guy to come to their house, and they give you an 8-hour window. Really? You know, why can't we do better than that? And it's because every call could go shorter or longer. I mean, I've had guys come to my house and way early and way late, and they magically show up right before I'm going to jump in the shower for the day, you know, sort of deal. When it's, you know, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and they said they wouldn't be here till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, knowing where your workers are and how far ahead of schedule is kind of key. I mean, it kind of goes back to that customer satisfaction again. If you know that you're going to be, you know, the worker's going to show up in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, well, you can plan your day at home. Even if you don't have cable TV, you can plan your day at home around that. And especially with a service call for air conditioner, again, we're down here in Florida. So when your air conditioner doesn't work, you're counting every second until the guy shows up. So having that notification ahead of time that the worker's en route is going to be there in 20 minutes, yeah, it's definitely a peace of mind. And that's where your customer satisfaction starts before you get the bill for fixing your air conditioner.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I just had an issue with my air conditioner, and one of the nice things about the company that I used was just that. They gave me a heads up about 30 minutes before the tech was going to arrive, and the only way that they would know that is because of the real time data that they had. So absolutely, so that actually goes right into my next question, which is, so acquiring real-time data, how does that help businesses make those smarter business decisions? Because that's essential.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about our software later in the day, but at the end of the day, again, customer satisfaction is a big deal. And again, in 20 years, I spent a lot of time on the road, actually making deliveries, and even as a company owner, I was out. Someone had to make the delivery, I made the delivery, and workers talk, and I know that if I'm going to dispatch an order, whether it's a delivery or a service order, and I'm going to dispatch it to you, Scott, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, um, because I think that you're the closest person there. And it turns out, as you're chatting with your buddies the next day, there was someone only 2 miles away or 10 minutes away the next day. You get employee satisfaction, or employees are not happy about that. So knowing where that is fantastic. Um, Also, it gives your customers better customer service. Why would they have to wait for an hour for you, and now it's after the regular business day, as opposed to having, finding someone that could have been just 10 minutes away and solved their problem earlier? Again, let's go back to the air conditioning thing. 10 minutes, an hour, that's a big difference.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, and from a business aspect as well, having that person that's closer to the job, you're saving gas, wear and tear on your vehicle, etc. So
Oh,
those are also hidden costs that go into that can absolutely help from the business end of things.
well, and fuel and maintenance is not a not a hidden cost anymore, especially
That's
today.
that
With
is true.
fuel
Yeah.
so much more expensive, and I used to have drivers that would meet for lunch, and it didn't matter. They could be 20 miles away. They would meet at a central location, each driving 10 miles. They would have lunch and then go back on their routes, or back on what they were doing. Well, when you start adding 20 miles for each individual guy, well, that starts adding up to real dollars and cents, not to mention the time lost and things like that. So knowing where your people are is, again, not only helps the customer, but it cuts down on your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge thing, and yeah, being able to curtail some of that stuff is huge on your bottom line for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So
Sure.
so what are some ways that organizations can prevent making uninformed business decisions? So kind of the opposite of what we were talking about earlier. So, you know. How can we go ahead and do that prevention? And I think you just sort of mentioned one of those, which is kind of taking a look at some of those patterns of behaviors and seeing, okay, how can we address some of those? But maybe you have some other ones that you might have in mind as well.
Finding a really good dispatcher, and allowing a good dispatcher to be trained takes years of experience. They've got to know the area, they've got to know the work, and they actually have to know the workers and what they're capable of. So anytime we have real-time information, that's one thing that they don't need to worry about. It's not a phone call to that worker in the field. Hey, where are you? Hey, where are you? Because every time, if I'm doing a job, especially, and we'll just continue to use HVAC as an example, but um, if there's a guy on a ladder working on my HVAC system and his phone rings and it's the dispatcher, he has to answer it,
Mhm.
which means he's not working on my job. And as a customer, when I watch him taking a phone call, knowing that I'm getting charged for every minute he's on the phone, yeah, that's kind of a bad impression on me. And maybe not everyone watches their HVAC guys working on their air handler, but when I'm waiting for cool air, I'm watching every second that they're spending. Um, so that's certainly one of the things. Guessing where your workers are, again, it's just a terrible thing. Most workers are pretty honest, but if I know that the guy is supposed to be at a site at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I call him at 12:30, hey, where are you? Well, I'm 5 minutes away. Number one, I don't have to call him. Number two, I know exactly where he's at. So I don't even have to call him, and I can communicate with the customer who's on the phone. This is where my driver's at, and this is the time he's going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are kind of the essential things of the communication aspect of it that you can then relay over to your customer is fantastic from the customer experience side of things.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about so we talked about some poor decision making, but what are some more of maybe some of the negative impacts that poor decision making can cause, when that's actually going on, and you don't have access to that data, that real time data.
Well, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. It's like, why did you choose me at 4 o'clock on a Friday to go do this job and to work overtime or the rest of that? And overtime is one thing, but not everyone wants that. I mean, certainly most of us have some sort of a home life that you want to kind of get to. So why me and not the guy that was closer? And again, drivers and workers talk. And nothing frustrates an owner more than dispatching the wrong guy, providing bad customer service when you could have, if you had the information at your fingertips, you could have provided better service, literally by just dispatching work to someone that was even closer. I've had things, and I think we touch on it later, with timekeeping and the rest of that. Um, how do we cut down on multiple data entry? So I'll just use like a vehicle inspection. At one point I had 75 vehicles in my fleet, and again, this is 20 some years ago, but I required my drivers every day, because it was a company vehicle, to fill out an inspection, check the oil, check the tires, do the headlights work, the rest of that stuff, because I don't want those. Having that vehicle off the road is a real pain in the butt to me. I mean, it really is. It costs me time. I've got to rent vehicles and things like that, and I'm just not efficient. So knowing about those things ahead of time is fantastic. But what we did 20 years ago was they filled out a piece of paper, and that piece of paper fell off their clipboard. It fell onto the floor of their vehicle. Then it had coffee spilled on it. So I didn't, if I was lucky, I saw that information once a week. Usually I got that information 2 weeks later, that, yeah, my brakes are squeaking, and what could have been a simple um, brake pad change now it's costing me $400 for new rotors and the rest of that getting installed. So having that information come back on a timely manner is a huge thing. Also, I used to, and again, this is back in the day, 20 years ago, I used to let my workers take their vehicles home every night. And that was a convenience, because I would try to work them, their last job or their last delivery of the day was close to their home.
Mm.
They didn't have to drive an hour through rush hour traffic at 6 o'clock at night to drive to the office, to then drive through rush hour traffic again to go home. So, um, but it was kind of a give and take. So the next morning when they clocked in, I didn't want them clocking in at their house an hour away from their first job.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
having that real time information, my payroll team didn't have to wait again till the end of the week, the end of 2 weeks, to get that payroll information, and then potentially even make a data entry problem, that we're not paying people. I'm not paying my workers correctly, because everyone, whatever you do during the week, you are sure that your paycheck is correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that you touched on was, having those forms come back to you with coffee stains and in all kinds of forms and manners, and that's something that I want to get into in a little bit here. When I, so I actually kind of want to take it into the Axoft platform and talk a little bit about some of those specific features, because we've been talking a little bit around some of the benefits and awesome things that you can have with that real-time data, but let's talk about some of the individual features themselves of what Axoft can do to help and solve some of those problems. And one of the first ones obviously is kind of those wireless forms, which eliminates all of that, what you were just talking about.
So we've been kind of talking generally, and we've had customers use our wireless forms for literally almost 2 decades. And it's everything from a vehicle inspection that gets routed back. And again, inside the Teamworks platform, I can take a form, and if everything is good, it just goes into a folder. Yeah, no one cares about it. But if any of, let's say, the tires were bald, or the brakes were squeaking, things like that, well, we have a feature called conditional emailing, that if any one of these fields inside the form is a positive or something needs to be worked on, well, I can route that right to my maintenance guys, or I can route that to my operations guy to then turn around and set up an appointment to get the vehicle serviced ahead of time. So wireless forms are extremely important for that. We've had another customer many years ago that it was a crane company, and it was only 3 or 4 cranes that they had, but they inspected the cranes once they came on site, and they might just be lifting trusses up. So we're not talking massive cranes, but enough. So they're putting trusses up on a house or a building. And so they did an inspection every single day before they fired it off. So now the crane is in the right place. I've inspected that the outriggers are in place. I've inspected everything. Well, unfortunately, this customer had an accident with their crane and it tipped over. And within an hour, OSHA was on site. Oh, when's the last time this crane was inspected? And they had the timestamp of exactly when the form was filled out. The location was where it was filled out. And that just stopped the OSHA inspection right there. Because bad things happen. We know that. And unfortunately, they do. But this customer said that that inspection being done 20 minutes before the accident happened saved his company. Yeah, unfortunately, someone got very injured in the whole thing, but it was amazing. He said, "You saved my company because they had the information ahead of time."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I actually know of some other examples of that as well, where OSHA was coming in to investigate, and forms that were filled out in safety protocol helped. And again, basically the same feedback. Without the forms, they would have been in some real issues legally, etc. Yeah.
Sure,
So and
because and
potentially losing their business. Yeah.
yeah, because anyone can fill out a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And there's no timestamp on this. We've got the location of where it was filled out and the time that it was filled out, and that's not editable by that worker in the field.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So,
You know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, mobile timekeeping is something that we offer in the Teamworks platform. Um, and there's a couple of advantages. Number one, we kind of talked about making sure the worker is clocked in at the appropriate spot. Again, we've had construction companies, and we had one that had 800 subcontractors, and this was a few years ago, but 800 subcontractors that would come to their site. And they actually issued every subcontractor when they came onto the site for safety and security reasons, an ID badge, and that ID badge had a barcode on it. And so when you, for example, Scott, would come on site as a subcontractor, and maybe you're a drywall guy, to get clocked in and credit for the hours that you worked, even as a subcontractor, they would scan the barcode on your badge using Teamworks, and that linked right back to your name, Scott Englert. So now I have a barcode that they can't, your buddy can't clock you in because they had to scan a barcode. We know the exact time that it was, and we know the location where you were at. And that saved them tens of thousands of dollars every month because guys were kind of, maybe on their paper form going, yep, clocked in at 7 a.m. Well, when you really didn't show up until 7:55 a.m. on the job site when you're supposed to get paid.
Yeah,
And again,
absolutely.
sending all that information back to the payroll team a week ahead of time makes it easier because now they're working on discrepancies for 7 days and not waiting to the last. I have 47 minutes to submit this to our payroll company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that feature pretty much works hand in hand with our GPS tracking feature, where that GPS timestamp is right there and good to go. But let's talk a little bit more about how GPS tracking and monitoring locations can work, and maybe even some geofence stuff, which I think is one of the coolest features that we have as well.
GPS tracking, there's multiple ways to do that. And there's plenty of software platforms out there, and some specialize in just GPS tracking of a vehicle. Where normally they put a IoT or an Internet of Things or a telematics device on the vehicle itself, and that can be wired into the vehicle. It could be as simple as plugging in a device into the OBD port. May or may not have one of those on my wife, certainly for just quality assurance checking. Um, no, honestly, I mean, going back many years ago, my wife had an older car, and she used to break down at 10 o'clock at night on the way home. And she's like, I'm broken down. Well, where are you? Well, I'm on the highway. Well, where? Well, I have no idea because it's dark, And so I literally used that to find her car so I could pick her up and while we wait for the tow truck years ago. I mean, it's that simple. It helps accountability again with gas at whatever it is now. It is increased over the last couple of years. Fuel is a big deal. Knowing where that is. And we talked about customer experience. Where are my drivers? When's the closest guy that's realistically going to show up at your house to provide service? We That's just kind of the high level of a worker going through the day. But workers do more than work. Workers do more than drive. So it's not just where is the vehicle, but we can do GPS tracking on a handset as well. And that could be a delivery guy, and I'll just use an example, going to a mall. And so they park the vehicle in the loading dock, and then they're going to make deliveries at XYZ company and ABC company. And so we can actually track where they are using their handset throughout the mall. Again, it's just not a big black hole of where the vehicle is.
Exactly. Yeah. No missing data going on there. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll kind of talk about with GPS, again, another customer that was a small landscaper. He had a backhoe and a truck, and he would do, grading and things like that and site preparation. Well, he had one of our asset trackers installed on his backhoe, and that backhoe was stolen on a Saturday. And since we knew where the location was, we got the police involved, reported that to the police, and we knew within 5 minutes of where that asset was. The police recovered it. And so this customer, he said, look, I've got insurance. He said, I would have got paid for that $75,000 backhoe. He said, but it would have been months for me to get paid for that. And then I've got to buy one. And he said, in the meantime, my company is dead in the water because I don't have my equipment.
Yeah.
He said, I lost a couple of hours on a Monday to get it back. He said, that way more than paid for everything that he's ever spent on an application that can help track not just his workers, his drivers, but his assets as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's not only the asset itself, but a lot of times on these trucks, they have tons of equipment on the trucks, which are necessary for jobs to be completed. And so, to get that stuff back, all kinds of wasted revenue. Yeah. So
sure.
Absolutely. Sure. So we're running a little bit tight on time here, so I'm actually going to switch over to our audience questions. So thank you so much for all of the excellent information in the presentation,
sure.
Trent. Really appreciate it. There's tons and tons of stuff that being a veteran of the industry. So one of the questions that we have here is, can you talk a little bit more about what the real-time data collecting process looks like and how it translates into the decision-making process? Yeah.
There's a whole lot there.
Yeah.
And again, we kind of talked about there are some companies that specialize in just telematics or the GPS location of a vehicle, which is still fantastic and that needs to be done. What we kind of do is again, we can leverage that information and again, take that data and put it into the Teamworks application and show not only where the vehicle is, but where the driver is. But we really rely on a cell phone or a tablet or something internet enabled, because that has that user interface for the driver. So whether they can see the orders that are assigned to them, and again, we use, to get a little technical, but we use Android or Apple push notifications to the driver. So by the time I dispatch an order to you, within a couple of seconds, you have the notification of this is what you need to do. All that data is captured on the phone. Again, real time. We know the location. We know the time that it was done. Cuts down on that duplicate entry and possible errors on the background.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very nice. Okay. Excellent. It looks like that's it for the questions that we didn't already go over in the actual presentation itself, and then also some stuff that was already done through the chat. So we wanted to take a second before we end here to let everybody know about a current promotion that we do have going on at Axsoft. We do have a 14-day free trial going on with our product Teamworks. And one of the really cool things about this promotion that is going on is that it is 100% set up for, there's no light version. This is the full deal. So all of the features that we were talking about during this webinar would be included in this, and it's a great way to really get started and see exactly how the software could benefit your company, and really just delve into some of those great features that we were talking about. So if you are interested at all in setting this up, you can go to our website at axoff.com, or you can visit the link shown on the screen here at axoff.com. Try Teamworks for free. And it's a simple form to fill out, and we get you all set up, and we've got a 14-day free trial to try it out. So just wanted to take a second to thank Trent. I really appreciate all the information, and thank everybody that joined us today, and we will see you next time. So have a great day.